Hey guys, the Analog Archivist here once again with VHScollector.com, here to bring you another VHS review, and today we are talking about a movie called Judgment Day. This was released in 1989 by Magnum Entertainment. It was made in 1988. Now when we look this movie up on IMDb, it has 123 votes and 13 user comments, which still kind of makes this obscure. The last movie I reviewed, which was Slash Dreams, that had a lot more votes and a lot more comments, but I think that was because that movie was assumed to be public domain and a bunch of budget labels released it in those multi-packs or whatever. This never had that treatment. Let's look at the cover here. We've got this demonic creature. Looks like the devil maybe. For some reason he's blue. He's got horns. This is actually Satan in the movie. And I've kind of said it before. Why do they always have to reveal all the creatures on the cover? Now, if this was a sequel like Friday the 13th Part 7, it would make no difference if they had Jason on the cover because we already know who Jason is. We know the movie's about him. All those things. This is a reveal in the movie pretty much. It's in the second half of the movie when the two characters are stuck in the hellish realm that they're in. Why reveal it? Like, seriously. Not to mention, I don't really like this makeup for the devil. I don't think it's that great. But I guess the marketing folks over at Magnum, I guess they think they know how to market these movies. They're just, I guess, thinking, what's the most horrific thing in the movie? Let's put that on the cover. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Now, if there's a gory movie, I always think of Comet Video. There's like 4 of them or 5 of them. They have the H.G. Lewis movies, and they have the most goriest scene on the cover of each of those big box VHS releases. And that's a little bit different because that's kind of suggesting what to expect more of. This is just one character. This is the only demonic, devilish creature in there. There's also like these little vampire creatures that are whipping people and they're wearing cloaks, which we'll discuss later in the movie, but why give it all away? Let the audience look forward to something. Please, they could have came up with some really cool, artistic post art that was really dark and demonic and spooky. The tagline reads, "One day a year, all hell breaks loose." Perfectly sums up this movie. Now, some people in the comments on IMDb, at least one guy, had a problem with the spelling of Judgment in the title. Now, usually Judgment is spelled without an E. When we look at the title, I don't really understand why it's called Judgment Day. Now, the characters get stuck in a hellish realm. We'll delve into the plot in a little bit, but just to explain it quickly. There is no judgment in the movie, despite being stuck in this realm. Like, I don't know where that comes in. I guess it just sounded cool, sounded hellish. Judgment Day has come upon the city of Santana. I don't know. I don't like the title. I think it could have been... They could have chose something better. They could have used the word day. There's also an alternate title for this movie called The Third Hand. Now let's look at the back here. We get 4 screenshots from the movie. Again, the devil's on there. I don't really like how the devil looks. I just don't like the makeup that much. But I'm just going to read the synopsis back here. Enter, if you dare, into a living nightmare of monstrously demonic proportions. Join Charlie and Pete, 2 young vacationers, as uninvited guests at a ghoulish ritual destined to last an eternity. The usually peaceful town of Santana has one hellish secret. Every year on the same day, Satan and his evil empire rise to the streets, wreaking destruction and torture on all who may fall in their path. Now that Charlie and Pete have unwittingly stumbled upon this ghastly celebration, Satan must determine their fate. You may heed all warnings, but nothing can prepare you for Judgment Day. Again, Judgment is spelled with the E. Okay, just in case you were curious. So yeah, that's accurate to the movie. There's no real lie with this release. It's not, you know, being phony. It's not really embellishing anything. Pretty accurate packaging. Let's just delve into this movie. I really like this movie. Let's just go into the plot. The film begins with 2 American tourists, Charlie and Pete, who are riding a bus in Mexico. When the bus gets a flat, the 2 are instructed to wait a few hours for the next bus. They decide not to wait, and against the warnings of the bus driver, of course, walk to the nearest town of Santana. Get it? Satan? Santana? Anyway, they are led by a mysterious old woman with the voice of a hot babe. Once they reach the town, the woman vanishes. Thirsty from their 8-mile walk in the sweltering heat, they hit up a cantina, which is run by an American man named Sam. When they are asked where they could find a place to spend the night, he tells them nowhere, because by midnight, the entire town will be empty and locked up. He then continues on to tell a local legend.
Over 3 centuries ago, a terrible plague threatened to kill all the people of Santana. The people believed it was the doing of the devil. A conquistador, the nobleman who founded this town, It's said that he outwitted the devil in a kind of bargain, you might say, and in so doing he saved all the people of Santana. The devil, however, was not to be cheated so easily. You see, he returns to this town one day every year to have his revenge, but only for that one day. So every year the people, they leave their homes and they leave their town.
Of course, Charlie and Pete don't take Sam's story too seriously, and decide to look for a place to spend the night anyway. After stopping at a few places, they begin to realize that at least part of Sam's story is true. People are in fact packing up and leaving the town. They then return to Sam to take him up on his offer of taking them to San Marco with them. However, Sam has a dilemma of his own. His daughter Angela has gone missing, and he vows to not leave the town until he finds her. Charlie and Pete stick around, waiting for him to return. By the time they do decide to leave on their own, it's too late, and they are stuck in the 24-hour hellish realm. While in the realm, they witness cloaked demonic vampires marching through the streets, whipping who are presumably captured souls. While stumbling throughout the town, they eventually take refuge in the home of Octavio. While Pete is more interested in sleeping with Octavio's daughter, Charlie on the other hand talks with him to figure out what's been going on. He learns that Octavio is a nobleman mentioned in the legend Sam told them earlier, and that in order for the devil to manifest during the 24-hour period, he must take over a human form. And this is done by putting on the so-called third hand. He also learns that if he doesn't leave the town by dawn, he will be stuck in that hellish realm until that date comes back around the following year. Upon learning this, he and Pete leave in hopes of finding a way out before their time is up. While looking to escape, they discover that Sam was captured and is now being whipped in the streets. Although Pete has been a douchebag throughout most of the film, he now wants to step up as a hero and rescue Sam from Satan. Charlie, being the pragmatic one, says, "Hell no, we have no chance." Pete threatens to flatten his friend in the street, and as usual, Charlie foolishly follows his friend into the devil's den with his tail between his legs. When they arrive, the two watch a ritual from afar, where Sam, while on a cross, is branded by the devil's third hand. As Sam hangs dying on the cross in a back alley, Charlie and Pete approach him. Sam tells Charlie to pass a message along to the town priest, and then dies right before them. While the two continue to look for a way out, Pete hurts his ankle, and the two agree to split up to later meet at Octavio's. When Charlie cannot get into Octavio's, he attempts to leave town and succeeds. He wakes up beside Sam's missing daughter, Angela. Remembering what Sam last said to him, he visits the priest of the town, suspecting he might be involved with all of this. As it turns out, Sam made a deal with the devil to take his life instead of Angela's. The priest then tells the story of how he came to bear the third hand. 12 years ago, the priest became the devil's vessel in exchange for giving his sister, who was also Sam's wife, a merciful death. The priest then takes out the third hand and offers it to Charlie, asking whether he would bear the hand to save his friend. He essentially says hell no and leaves the church. We then flash forward a year later, to the eve of Satan's visit. Astonishingly, Charlie had decided to stay behind in Santana for the whole year in hopes of rescuing his friend the second time around. Of course, I'm thinking, did he really have to stay the whole year? Doesn't this guy have a family? Couldn't he just go home and come back a few days before the date approaches? Besides, does he really think he's going to save his friend from the clutches of Satan after a year has passed? When Pete enters the hellish realm later that night, he goes to Octavio's in search for Pete, only to discover that Pete now bears the third hand. How unexpected. There it is, guys. I actually really enjoyed this movie. It's quite fun, it's dark, it's twisted, and it's sort of, you know, it's not boring. There's a lot involved with the plot. It's almost like a game where these two characters get stuck in this 24-hour period and they must escape. I actually liked it. Awesome premise all around. I like the cinematography. It's a dark movie and they have a great setting with some of the ruins. And I don't know if this was actually shot in Mexico. If you go on the IMDb page, it actually says it was shot in the Philippines. But there are a bunch of Mexicans in this movie. Are those just Filipinos posing as Mexicans? I don't get it. One of the drawbacks with this movie is there are some dubbing with the Mexican actors in it, and it just stands out horribly. The little girl, Angela, totally dubbed by somebody else. It's kind of like with Satanic Attraction, where I actually really enjoyed that movie, but the dubbing was just bad. There isn't too much dubbing in here. There's no dubbing with the main characters of the movie. It's just with the secondary characters, thank goodness. But yeah, I just really loved the movie. Felt like The Twilight Zone. Now this movie was directed by a guy named Ferde, Grofé Jr. I'm saying that right. He did about maybe 5 or 6 other movies. He really didn't do much. He also produced this movie. The two main leads of this movie, the actors who played the characters of Charlie and Pete, these guys suck, I'm sorry. In fact, they haven't even been in that many movies. When you go on their IMDb page, each of them were only in like less than 10 movies. One of them played like ninja roles in a bunch of, not a bunch, but a handful of martial arts films. How he ended up in this movie, I don't know. They're just not good. I mean, the Charlie character isn't that bad, but Peter, just not a great actor in my opinion. Now you do have the three classic actors. You have Cesar Romero, does an awesome job playing Octavio as this guy who's exiled into this hellish realm. He does a great job playing the nobleman because he totally comes off as a nobleman. You got also Monty Markham, who plays Sam. Now Friday the 13th fans might also notice Peter Richmond in this movie. He's the uncle or the principal in Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. He plays the same exact character in both movies. I mean, he's a priest in this movie. The very stoic, stern type character. It's incredible to watch the performance in this movie because you're like, oh my god, it's the same character as in Friday the 13th. This was made a year before Jason Takes Manhattan. He's been in over 100 movies, this guy. I remember seeing him in Three's Company as Chrissy's father, I think, if I remember correctly. And even then he played like an older character, and that was like the 70s, or maybe the early 80s. And this guy's still around, and I think he's still acting and stuff, which is incredible. So you've got some great talent in this movie. It's just unfortunate that the two leads kind of suck. Now also on IMDb with this movie, I realized that it doesn't have any crew listed. Just like with the Satan's Touch IMDb page, has no crew listed. So somebody who's entering this data for this movie or Satan's Touch, they figure, oh, you know, crew doesn't matter, just the cast and the director. Who are these people? Like, seriously. Do you really think that the crew who put this movie together don't deserve their credit on IMDb? It's just really pathetic. I actually had to look at the end credits for the cinematographer because they're not in the beginning of the movie. In fact, this doesn't even have a director's credit in the beginning of the movie, which is really unusual. And I found the cinematographer's name, but I just thought it was funny that it was on the cover the whole time, these letters. I didn't realize it, but Peter Warrilow, if I'm saying that right, and he didn't do a lot of movies, but still, he deserves his credit on this, on IMDb. He does have an IMDb page, but it does not include this movie, so who knows how many cinematographers out there are not getting credit for a film that they shot. Who knows? There's got to be so many out there. So yeah, there it is, guys. Judgment Day. I really enjoyed this movie. I would love to see it on Blu-ray someday. I think it definitely deserves it. But the problem that we have is that it looks like it might have been edited on video. It sort of has a video feel to it, and if that is the case, that's a bad sign because these film elements might no longer exist. Definitely look for this movie. It's on YouTube. Really, really poor quality. If you search this on Google, if you search Judgment Day DVD, iOffer pops up, which is just bootleg, of course. I don't know why people would be buying the bootleg if it's just on YouTube. But also, I think this might have had a small legitimate DVD release in another country. This has been the Analog Archivist with VHScollector.com. Please check out the Indiegogo campaign. I keep reminding you guys. Again, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.